Oh, no, this time I drove.
Hey folks, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me in the back? Good? Cool. Welcome to ForeFlight Fundamentals. This is going to be a basic introductory course in using ForeFlight Mobile. So over the next hour, we're going to go through all of the basic features in ForeFlight Mobile. We're going to work left to right across that tab bar at the bottom of the app. Just by a show of hands, who here is completely new to ForeFlight? Maybe you just started using it. Okay, perfect. This is the course for you. If you're a more advanced user, we have another course tomorrow, same time, same place, ForeFlight Power Users. We're going to go into more advanced features. My name is Ryan McBride. I lead the product design team at ForeFlight. So my team is responsible for making the features within the app easy to use, easy to understand. Before I move into the presentation, I want to point out that just for attending today, you're eligible for FAA Wings credit. This is the URL you can go to. And you can enter your name and the time of the presentation and the presentation that you went to, and we'll credit your account for the FAA Wings program. I also have some cards up here, up front, that have the URL on them, so you can pick one of those up after the presentation, just as a reminder. Again, that Power Users course, that advanced course, that's going to be tomorrow, at 11 a.m., not at 1 p.m. It's 11 a.m. tomorrow, right here. And then 1 p.m. tomorrow, also here, we're going to have a presentation on what's new in ForeFlight. So today we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to talk about the iPad. Whether you're purchasing your first iPad or are interested in upgrading your iPad to one of the latest models, ForeFlight works the same on all of the modern versions of the iPad. So the screen size you choose is totally up to you. But there is some short advice we recommend. We normally give customers. I'm going to give you that advice today. Then we're going to dive into the application. We're going to talk about ForeFlight Mobile and everything it can do. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you some information on how to learn more about the product, get support, watch some tutorial videos, that sort of thing. And then we're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So if anyone has any questions as I'm moving through the presentation, remember your question, and at the end we'll have time to get some answers for those. So before I dive into the basics of the app, for those of you who have been using it for a while, I just wanted to highlight some of the newest features. We're always working on new stuff at ForeFlight, and this year has been no exception. We've had 3 major releases so far this year. We've recently enhanced the profile view in the application. So for those of you with the ForeFlight Pro subscription, you're used to seeing this profile view in the application. It shows you basically a side view of the terrain, obstacles, and airspace along your route. Or if you're flying, it'll show you the same information but ahead of your GPS ground track. We've recently added that route line that you can see there into the profile. So this is going to have all of your waypoints along your route, and based on your aircraft's performance, it automatically calculates where your top of climb will be and where your top of descent will be. So that's in the latest version, available to Pro subscribers. We've also been working on some visualization features. The latest one is called 3D Airport. This allows you to visualize any airport in the world in 3 dimensions. And it's very simple. You can tap on an airport, open it up, and you will see a view that looks like this. So we've taken the worldwide Jeppesen terrain database that's built into every ForeFlight subscription, and on top of that, we've overlaid some satellite imagery. You can tap on the buttons in the top right-hand corner of the screen to orient you on a 1-mile final right on the glide slope for that runway, and that's built into the performance subscription. But we didn't stop at just airports. We actually built the 3D feature into any point on Earth. So you can tap on the map in any arbitrary position, tap the 3D button, and see what's there. This is a great example of Mount St. Helens. So that's 3D Airport. It's out now for performance subscribers. We've also added breadcrumbs. We got a lot of requests for this feature, and the breadcrumb feature is now available to everyone. Breadcrumbs look like this. So as you're flying along, you're going to see your GPS path that you've been flying trailing behind the aircraft. So that's some of the new features in ForeFlight. We're going to go a lot more in depth into all those features, how they work, tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here. And again, the latest version of ForeFlight is 11.2.1. That's out now. We are in Hangar C at the show, booth 92. You can stop by, demo the new features, ask questions. We're going to be there all week. So a little about ForeFlight before we dive into the app. The company's been around since 2007. It was founded by Tyson Weiss, the current CEO, and Jason Miller, the current CTO. Jason and Tyson are both pilots. They met online through some discussion forums, and the year the iPhone was introduced, which was 2007, they realized the potential this device might have to make pilots' lives a little easier. So they got together and they started working on an application, and the first version of the application was actually just a basic website. It was a mobile website, so it was formatted for the iPhone, and you could enter an airport code and you could get a METAR. And we've come a long way since then. When the iPad was introduced in 2010, that's when the company really took off. The iPad is such a perfect form factor for the cockpit. We pride ourselves on building the most elegant, high-performing apps in aviation. We also pride ourselves on something we call the Fanatical Pilot Support Team. So everyone on the support team at ForeFlight is a pilot. Most are CFI, CFII. They're all ForeFlight experts. They're available 24/7 to answer any questions, comments, or requests you have. I'm going to give you some information at the end of the presentation on how to contact our support team. We're proud to say we've been the #1 selling aviation app since 2010. So let's talk about the iPad. The iPad comes in a variety of different screen sizes, from the mini on the small size, which, by the way, was just updated by Apple. Alleluia, they've updated the iPad mini. It's a great device for the cockpit. The mini on the small size, to the iPad Air in the middle size, to the iPad Pro, the largest size. ForeFlight runs the same on all of those iPads, so whatever iPad you choose is totally up to you. I fly a Cessna 172, and I've been taking lessons in an R44, and so for those aircraft, my best device for me is the Mini. I like the Mini in that size. But if you fly something with some more room, or you just prefer a larger screen, maybe take a look at the iPad Air or even the iPad Pro. Whichever screen size you choose, they all come in 2 different versions, Wi-Fi only or Wi-Fi plus cellular. And we recommend the Wi-Fi plus cellular version of whatever screen size you choose. And that's because when Apple makes the iPads, they make the GPS receiver and the cellular receiver on the same computer chip. So if you want GPS, you need to get the cellular model. Now, it's not required to sign up for cellular's data service to utilize the GPS in the device, but you do need that hardware to get GPS. If you are fine with connecting an external GPS, or you don't care about GPS, then maybe the Wi-Fi only model is for you. But to have an internal GPS cellular model, and then we recommend a minimum of the 32 gigabyte size iPads. You could download everything that ForeFlight can offer. It'll fit comfortably on that size. If you are going to have other apps, videos, photos, whatever on that iPad, maybe bump it up to 64 or 128. But minimum 32 is what we recommend. If you have more questions about which iPad is best for ForeFlight, you can check out our buying guide at foreflight.com/buying guide. We also have the buying guide in printed form at our booth in Hangar C, or you can always send our support team an email, team@foreflight.com. So let's talk about ForeFlight Mobile. It's an all-in-one application, so it's really meant to provide the pilot with everything they need to plan their flight, fly their flight, and review their flight. So that includes airport information for every airport, maps, charts, plates and procedures, documents, weather imagery, everything you'd expect to find on aviationweather.gov, plus more is built into ForeFlight. The ability to file and get briefings for VFR and IFR flight plans. You can file a flight right from the application. It's really neat. A feature we call Scratchpad. We all know a big part of flying is taking notes, writing things down, and so the Scratchpad feature is a way to jot down notes quickly on your ForeFlight screen, and a whole lot more. And we're going to go through all of this today. I should mention too, this presentation is being recorded, so if there is something you missed, you can go to our website after the show, and this presentation will be on the website. Let's jump into the App Store. If you haven't downloaded ForeFlight before, you'll need to get it onto your device, whether that's an iPad or an iPhone. And the way you do that is you open up the App Store on your device, and you search for ForeFlight Mobile. And you'll see the App Store page for ForeFlight, which looks like this. And you can tap the blue download icon, the little cloud, and it will download to your app. And when you first open up the application for the first time, you'll see a view that looks like this. This is the airport's view. It's the default view for new installations of ForeFlight. Along the bottom of the screen are a series of buttons. We call these buttons tabs, and altogether we call this the tab bar. And each of these tabs allows you to jump between different pieces of information in the app. And the tab bar is really handy because you can be looking at something in one view, switch to another tab to do something else, and then come back to the tab you were last on, and whatever you were looking at is still there. So it's a great way to jump around quickly in flight. So today we're going to work left to right across each of those tabs. So we're going to start in the airports view, which is the airports tab. And we're going to start looking at the airports view, which is something like this. So we're looking at JFK right now. If I wanted to look at information for another airport, I could just type the airport name or the identifier into the search field at the top of the screen. So the search field's up here in the top right, and I can tap in there with my finger, and I will get a keyboard, and I can start typing an airport code. For example, if I wanted to see Oshkosh information, I'd type KOSH, and I'd hit enter on my keyboard. Now, if you don't remember the airport code, that's okay. The search in ForeFlight's pretty smart, and you can type the name of the airport or the city that you think the airport is in, and it will give you recommendations based on what it thinks you're trying to find. So hit enter on your keyboard, and the view will be refreshed with the Oshkosh information for that airport. A couple things at the top here. There's two sections. There's this top section, which is a summary of all the information about the airport. That's this section right here. And then there's a bottom section, which has a series of tabs that move across the center of the screen there, and that allows you to dive deeper into that specific information for this airport. So let's start with the top summary section. We can see a thumbnail diagram of the airport, the identifier, its name, city, state, country, latitude, longitude, the local sunrise and sunset times. We can see the flight category. Based on the latest METAR report from that airport, we're going to call that out here, whether it's VFR, marginal, IFR, or low IFR. You can see field elevation and pattern altitude, any fuel or procedures that are available here. And on the right side, you can see a bunch of common frequencies that you might want to have for quick reference at this airport. At the bottom of the screen are those tabs that move across the center of the screen. Each of the tabs is organized in the same way. There's two columns. There's a left column, which is categories of information, and a right column, which is all of the information in that category that you've selected. So in this case, we're looking at frequencies for Oshkosh, and I have all the categories of frequencies: approach, ground, tower. I can tap on the category I want, like approach, and on the right-hand side, I see all the frequencies in that category. Pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the next tab, weather. Again, it's organized the same way. So I have a column on the left that's categories of information, and then the details on the right. So we're looking at a METAR here. We can see that it's VFR currently when this screenshot was taken. Based on the METAR report, ForeFlight will parse it for you and figure out if it's VFR, marginal, IFR, or low IFR, and it'll color code the raw text of the METAR to indicate what the flight category is. Underneath the raw text is a translated version. So if there's ever a code or something in there that you're not familiar with, you can reference the translation and see what that means. And underneath the translation is the nearby weather. So if you're trying to get a sense of what the surface conditions are in that general area, that's a quick way to reference that. The next option here is the terminal forecast. That's underneath METAR. If there is no terminal forecast at the airport you're looking at, ForeFlight will show you the nearest terminal forecast. So in this case, I'm looking at the nearest TAF, which is 16 nautical miles north of Oshkosh. I can see that with the orange text up at the top. I can see that it was last updated 3 hours and 1 minute ago. That's the blue text in the top right corner. And again, just like the METAR, we color code each of the blocks of the TAF based on what flight category is forecast to be in effect at that time. And then underneath that, we have the translated blocks for each of the forecast periods. Lots of other types of weather here. We're not going to get into in-depth on all the different types of weather in this presentation. We do go more in-depth in the power users presentation. But very quickly, the next option under TAF MOS, that stands for Model Output Statistics. It's a special type of weather forecast. It's an automated forecast. So unlike the TAF, which is actually handwritten by a meteorologist, the MOS is generated entirely by computer algorithms. The reason we've included it is because the MOS is available at far more airports nationwide than a TAF is, so there might be a MOS closer to you than there is a TAF. And also it has what we call greater temporal and spatial resolution, which is just a really fancy way of saying there's more MOS stations available and the forecast is smaller chunks of time, so it's more detailed information. So check out the MOS if there's not a TAF near you. Underneath MOS is the forecast discussion. Forecast discussion is not specific to aviation, though there is an aviation section within it. Basically, I like to think of the forecast discussion as a blog post. Every time the forecaster updates the TAF, they update the forecast discussion. And this is sort of like a plain language explanation of what's going on with the weather in that area. It's a way for them to quantify or qualify some of the information that they're forecasting in the TAF. So check that out. And the last option there is winds aloft. That'll show you wind speed, direction, and temperature that's forecast from surface all the way up to 60,000 feet above any airport. The runways tab is next. All the information you'd expect to find in the Green Book, the airport facility directory, when it comes to runway information, that's all included here. But we've made it a little smarter. You can tap on the runway you want, and then on the right, you can see the details for it. There's a special section up top, wind components. So based on the latest METAR, we can tell you what the headwind, tailwind, or crosswind component is going to be for any of the runways that are available, which is really handy. The next tab over is procedures. This is how we can look at any procedure, whether it's a taxi diagram, an ILS approach, a SID, a STAR, that sort of thing. So I can tap on the procedures tab. I can select the category of procedure I want. So if I wanted a taxi diagram, I would click on the airport section, and then I would tap on airport diagram. And I would tap on that, and ForeFlight would show me this view here. This is the FAA airport diagram for Whitman Regional. A couple things I want to point out on this diagram. The first is you can see that we have our airplane here. Here's our airplane on the taxi diagram. We can see our airplane on the taxi diagram because we have a GPS connection, whether that's an internal GPS on the iPad or an external GPS that you've connected. And in this case, I'm a Pro subscriber. So with the Pro subscription, I have what's called geo-referenced procedures. I can tell if the procedure is geo-referenced because there's a blue box around a portion of the procedure. Everything inside the blue box is what's going to be geo-referenced. So as long as you're a Pro subscriber and you have a GPS signal, you will see your position on that plate. Not every single procedure is geo-referenced, but most of them are. Similarly, I can open up the ForeFlight diagram. So we get a lot of questions, okay, there's the FAA taxi diagram. That's great. What's the ForeFlight diagram? And the answer is it's a taxi diagram, just like you'd expect to look at in the FAA form. But as pilots ourselves, we were a little frustrated that the FAA doesn't necessarily publish taxi diagrams for every airport. So we built up a team at ForeFlight, a GIS team, that basically creates geo-referenced taxi diagrams to fill in the gaps where the FAA hasn't created a taxi diagram yet. So if you don't see an FAA diagram at your airport, check and see if there's a ForeFlight one. It's likely there might be. You can tap on that, and you'll get the ForeFlight diagram. Again, a very similar looking taxi chart, but you can tell it's the ForeFlight one because it has that ForeFlight logo at the bottom of the screen. So just like taxi diagrams, we can look at other types of procedures, like approaches. I could tap on the approach section, and I could select one of these approaches, like this one here, and I could tap on it, and it will open up. And again, in this case, because I'm a Pro subscriber and I have a GPS signal, I'm going to see my position on the plate. Now, you can see the blue box here. It's only around the plan portion of the procedure. Sometimes we're asked, well, why can't I see my airplane in the profile on the procedure as well? And the answer is the profile isn't geo-referenced. And it's not geo-referenced because it's not drawn to scale, whereas the plan section is. So you'll only be able to see your position inside that blue box. Okay, next section. If you could hold the questions till the end, we'll have a Q&A at the end. NOTAMs. Important to check all the NOTAMs before you fly, and any NOTAMs that are relevant to this airport are organized under the NOTAMs tab. So we've categorized them based on airport obstacle, TFR, center NOTAMs. If you're a Jeppesen customer and you have Jeppesen charts, you'll see the JEP-specific NOTAMs in this view as well. For each of the NOTAMs, we've given them a unique icon based on the type. So whether it's, in this case, a taxiway NOTAM or a procedure NOTAM, we've bolded the NOTAM itself, and then we've parsed out the effective and expiration times just to draw your attention to them so they're a little easier to read. Next tab over is services. If you're flying into a new airport that you've never been to before, you want to see what sort of restaurants are nearby, car rentals, hotels, that sort of thing, you can check the services tab and see what's nearby. If you open this view on your iPhone and tap on one of these businesses on your iPhone in ForeFlight, it'll actually call the business for you on your phone. The actual page right out of the chart supplement, the airport facility directory section, that's included as well. So if you'd prefer to just look at what it looks like in the book, that's always here under the AFD tab. One last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on from the airport's view is a little button in the top right corner of the airport's view. There it is up there. It's the FBO's button. If I tap on this button, I'm going to see all of the airport businesses that are available. So that's going to mean flight schools, maintenance facilities, FBOs, that sort of thing. If I tap on one of these businesses, I can get more information about them. So I could tap on Basler Flight Service at Oshkosh, and I could see what their current fuel prices are, what their business hours are, where they're located, Unicom, phone number, email, website. Lots of information if you scroll down in this view. But you can also tap on the comments section, and you can see what other ForeFlight customers have said about this business, and you can leave your own comments as well, sort of like a mini Yelp for FBOs. Okay, so that's the airport's view. Let's move on to the maps section. The maps tab is one to the right of airports. So we're on that left tab now. We've moved one to the right along the bottom. This is what the maps view looks like. Everything in ForeFlight on the Maps view is projected onto a 3D representation of the planet. So you're going to see your GPS position on top of that map. No matter what chart you're looking at, whether it's an IFR chart or a VFR chart, different types of weather, it's all laid onto this 3D representation. So you can interact with the map the same way no matter what type of chart you're looking at. For example, I can take my finger and I can put it on the map and I can drag it across the screen. We call this panning. And I can move to another area that I'm interested in looking at. Or I can take two fingers and I can put them on the screen and I can spread them apart. We call that pinch to zoom. And I can zoom in to get greater detail about any area. There's a button in the top left corner of the map view. It's this one up here. It has three little boxes like layers. We call this the layer selector. The layer selector is how we look at charts, so different types of maybe a VFR chart or an IFR en route chart. It's also how we look at layers. Layers are pieces of information that I can visualize on top of a chart. So a common layer might be something like radar or pilot reports or TFRs, that sort of thing. So if I tap on that button, I'll see there's two columns. The left column is all of the charts that I have available to me. And different subscription levels and different coverage areas mean that your view here might look a little different than mine. It depends on your subscription. The right column are layers, so different pieces of information like radar or temperature or winds aloft that I can put on top of whatever chart I've selected. So if I was a VFR pilot and I was going to go out and fly on a nice day on the weekend, I might open up the layer selector and tap on the VFR sectional option. So it's blue. That means it's active, it's on. And my map has been replaced with a VFR sectional. But of course, no matter what chart I'm looking at, I can always interact with the map the same way, right? So I could pinch to zoom, zoom back out, I can pan around. In ForeFlight, we stitch all of the charts together. So all of the VFR sectional charts that you normally find in paper form, they've been stitched together. We've cropped off the edges for you so they fit together really nicely. And it's basically one seamless map. If you're flying in an urban area that has a TAC chart, for example, I fly in Chicago, and so there's a Chicago TAC chart, and I reference that a lot. When you zoom in to that area, whatever area has the TAC chart, the TAC will show automatically. It'll just pop into view right on top of the VFR sectional. So there's no specific thing you have to do to switch to the TAC. It just shows when you zoom in a little bit. It's automatic. Of course, if I'm flying IFR, I might want to look at an IFR en route chart. So I can tap on IFR low, see that, tap on IFR high, see that. It's just one tap away. There's a couple other maps that are built in. They aren't aviation specific, but we've included them because we think you might find them useful. One of them is the street map. This is sort of like a Google Street Map that covers the whole planet. You can zoom in, see neighborhoods and lakes and things like that. The other one is the aerial map. This is a satellite aerial photography map that, once again, covers the entire planet. It's pretty high resolution. You can zoom in. You can go all the way into individual planes on ramps. It's really, really neat to look at. There's one last type of map that I want to talk about today, and it's the first option, aeronautical. This is a special map. It's built into every Basic Plus, Pro Plus, and Performance Plus plan. And it's special because it's what we call dynamic and data-driven. So when we're looking at like a VFR chart like we just were, what that really is that's a scanned image of the paper chart, right? And the images are scanned and they're put into the application and they're stitched together. And that's great, and that's not going to go away. But we think the future of mapping is dynamic. And what that means is instead of scanning paper products and putting them into the application, what if the application could just draw the map on the fly, right on the device? And that's what this map is. So we take a worldwide aeronautical database. It's actually the Jeppesen aeronautical database. Even if you're not a JEP subscriber, you're getting this feature. It's built into every ForeFlight subscription. And based on that aeronautical database, the device itself draws the map. So there's a couple benefits to doing it like this. I'll show you. Here's what it looks like. When I pinch to zoom and I zoom out to see a greater area, the map will change. I get big picture information, Class B airports, center boundaries, that sort of thing. But as I zoom in, more information fades into view. I get airspace, nav aids, airways, waypoints. If I keep going all the way in, even the taxi diagrams are built directly into the map. So in this way, the map is sort of intelligent, right? It knows where you are, it knows what you're looking at, and it can show you different information based on those criteria. Of course, because it's drawn on the fly, on the device, that means we can change the way it looks. We can change what it looks like and what it displays. And we can do that using the settings menu, which is up here in the top right-hand corner, or top left-hand corner. I can tap on that settings button, and I get a view that looks like this. And so I can tap into, for example, the map theme option. Then I can switch it from dark to light. If I'm flying in bright sunlight, I want to have a better contrast. Or I can turn airways off or switch them from high to low, and the map will re-render. I can even adjust the size of all the text labels from small to big, depending on what's easiest for me to see. I think one of the best benefits of this map, though, is it solves a really common problem with a standard scanned paper chart. And that is, if I'm flying south, but I'm tracking nose up, my chart's going to be upside down, right, if I'm looking at a VFR sectional. This map is intelligent. It knows what way you're flying, and so it's always going to rotate the labels and keep everything upright so you can read them at all times. So again, that was the left column we were looking at, all the different types of charts. Let's talk about the right column now, map layers. Lots and lots of choices in here. I'm going to go through a few of my favorites today. I think at the most basic level, it's really useful to have radar in ForeFlight. I can tap on the radar option, and I get a depiction of radar on the screen. If I'm connected to the internet over Wi-Fi or cellular, I'll see radar. Or if I'm connected to an ADS-B-in device, like the Sentry or the Stratus, I'll get ADS-B radar instead when I tap on that radar option. Radar in ForeFlight has a couple different features. The first is, if you are connected to internet radar, you're going to get what we call storm attributes. So that is the little things you see rendered on top of the depiction. This line here, this is called a storm track. And this is basically showing you the direction and trend of that cell. So this left-hand dot, that is where that cell is now. One dot over is going to be 20 minutes from now. Next dot, 40 minutes. Last dot, an hour. So that's where that cell is trending. Of course, another great way to see the trend of a storm is to animate the radar. And I can animate the radar by going to the bottom of the screen. Whenever I have an animatable layer on, I'm going to get a little timeline. And I can tap the play button, and ForeFlight will start animating different frames of the latest radar returns, just like that. Another great layer to look at is the enhanced satellite layer. We call it enhanced because it's actually a combination of visible satellite and infrared satellite. So you can derive both cloud coverage laterally as well as cloud tops vertically based on the infrared legend. Another good one is AirMets, SIGMETs, and center weather advisories. You can turn those on. We'll plot out all the AirMets, SIGMETs, and CWAs. You can filter which types you want to see. If you're only interested in icing or only interested in turbulence, you can turn on and off different types at the bottom of the screen. And I can tap on any one of these shapes and I'll get information about it. I can see what it is, when it's active, if it's currently active, what altitude it applies to, and then the raw text of the report. As a general rule, if there's something in ForeFlight that you want more information on, just tap it. Pretty much everything in the application is fully interactive. Another good example of that is TFRs. So TFRs are issued, and you'll get them over the internet, or if you're in flight, you'll get them over ADS-B. And when you turn the TFR layer on, we're going to plot out TFRs on the map for you. If you see a red TFR, that's active. That's a currently active TFR, so don't fly in it. If you see a yellow one, that's not currently active, but will be soon. It's an upcoming TFR. So you can tap on any TFR you see, get information about it, again, what it is, when it's effective, if it's active, what the altitudes are, and the raw text. Here's an example of an upcoming TFR. So this one's yellow, so I know it's not currently effective, but it will be soon. There's one other thing we've done with the TFR feature that I think is really handy and that our customers are benefiting from a lot. As pilots, we have to be aware of stadium TFRs, right? Whenever there's an event going on at a large location like a stadium or a racetrack, we have to be aware that there's effectively a TFR in place over that location for the duration of the event. Unfortunately, the FAA does not publish stadium TFRs like they publish the rest of the TFRs in the system. And we fly a lot at ForeFlight, and we got very frustrated by that. And so we decided, what if we could build a system that showed stadium TFRs? And so we did that. So we built a system that goes out and looks at all the stadiums all across the country. And then it pulls in all the schedules, everything that's going on at all those stadiums, and it figures out when the games are, when the events are. And if there is an event at any given stadium, you will see that in ForeFlight. So here's an example from Chicago. There were 2 upcoming TFRs. You can tap on it to see what it is for. In this case, the Pirates were playing the Cubs. And that's automatic. That's built into every ForeFlight subscription. Next option is really simple, flight category. So based on the METAR reports all across the country, we're going to put a little bubble on the airport's location, and we're going to color that bubble based on what flight category is being reported. So green is marginal, Green is VFR, blue is marginal, red is IFR, magenta is low IFR. I can tap on one of these bubbles and get information about it. This should look familiar, right? This looks just like the METAR view we were looking at in the airports view earlier. One thing we've tried to do is design information in a similar way no matter where you look at it, so that when you learn how to read something in one place, you can apply that knowledge and read it in another place. One of my favorite layers is the winds aloft. With that little device, whether it's on your iPhone or on your iPad, you can see what the forecast wind speed, temperature, and direction is for any point on the planet at any altitude from 0 to 60,000 feet. You can turn on the winds aloft layer, and ForeFlight will plot out wind barbs all across the map. It can pinch to zoom out a little bit. It's color-coded based on relative intensity versus historic trends for that altitude in that area. There's a little an altitude slider in the bottom right-hand corner here. And I can move that up and down, and I can see what the winds are forecast to be doing at different altitudes. Another useful layer to have is the pilot reports layer. So pilot reports come in, they get sent into the PIREP system, and if you are connected to the internet or you have an ADS-B device, you will see pilot reports on the map at the exact location they were reported. The orange ones are turbulence, the blue ones are icing, and the gray ones are something else, some other type of observation. I can tap on any one of these pilot reports to see when it was reported and what the actual report was. A couple other additional weather layers that are available in our Pro Plus subscription that I wanted to talk about today. One is the icing forecast. So you can select the icing layer if you're a Pro Plus customer from the menu there. There's two versions. There's a US model and then there's a global model if you're flying internationally. You can select that and you can see what the forecast intensity of icing is going to be over time. So I can move that time slider back and forth and see where the icing is going to be. And I have a similar altitude slider, just like winds aloft. I can move up and down in altitude and see where the icing is at various altitudes here. I can do the same thing with turbulence. So if I turn on the turbulence layer in the layer selector, I can see what the forecast intensity of turbulence is going to be at any altitude and moving forward in time. And the last one I wanted to show here is surface analysis. This is essentially a more intelligent prog chart. So instead of going to the weather imagery and looking at the prog charts, this is one more option for you. You can turn surface analysis on by tapping that layer in this layer selector, and you'll see the frontal movement across. It's actually a global product, so you're going to see pressure information across the whole planet. And you can move that forward and backward in time and see where the fronts are moving. Okay, so that's enough weather and charts. Let's talk about flight planning. We can plan our flights here on the Maps view. And the way to do that is by using the Flight Plan drawer. And we can access the Flight Plan drawer by tapping this button in the top of the screen, the FPL button. And I tap on that, and the drawer slides down, and I get this view here. You can see in the center there's a big area that says tap here to create a route. We can create routes in ForeFlight just like we would type words in a sentence. So if I was typing a sentence, I would type a word and then the space bar and then a word and then the space bar. I can do the same thing with my route. So let's do that. I'll tap into the box and I get a keyboard that comes up from the bottom of the screen. And I can start entering my route. So let's go from Oshkosh. I'll start with KOSH, and then I'll tap the space bar on my keyboard. And two things happen. The first thing that happens is that Oshkosh airport identifier that I typed in, it's now filled in. We call that a route bubble. And when you see a little bubble like that, that's a good thing. That means ForeFlight knows what that is. That's a real legitimate waypoint, and there's no problems. If it's red, that means ForeFlight doesn't know what that is. Maybe you mistyped it, or it's not spelled how you thought it was spelled, and you'll get an error if that happens. The second thing that happens, though, is ForeFlight has plotted the waypoint on the map for us here. So you can see KOSH is now our first waypoint here. So let's continue down to Schaumburg, Illinois. Schaumburg's identifier is 06 Charlie. So I'll type 06 Charlie, and then again, the space bar on my keyboard. I get a bubble up at the top, and I get my first leg that's drawn for me. Let's go over to my home state of Michigan, and maybe Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'll type KGRR, and now I have a leg to Grand Rapids. So you can see that's plotted out both the legs with my 3 waypoints up at the top. Now, we can create and modify our routes using this method by typing waypoints in with our keyboard, and that's one way to do it. Another way to modify your route in ForeFlight is to interact directly with the map itself, and we call this touch planning. And I'll show you how it works. Let's say I'm not too keen on flying across Lake Michigan, and I want to go around the lake to get to Grand Rapids. Well, if I knew what airport I wanted to stop at, or some waypoint that I wanted to stop at along the way, I could go up into the flight plan drawer and I could insert that waypoint where I wanted it. Or I could tap on the leg, the green leg that's drawn from Schaumburg to Grand Rapids. I could tap on it with my finger and press and hold on the screen. And when I press and hold on the screen, I'm able to drag the leg down to where I want to stop. I'll put it on that airport, and I get this view. We call this the disambiguation view. It's a fancy name, but basically it just means here's all the things where you tapped, and you can filter these things: airports, nav aids, waypoints, whatever. In this case, I wanted the airport, Plymouth Municipal, which is right there. So I'll select that. So you can see it's added that waypoint for me, and up at the top of the screen, it's imported the Plymouth airport code, Charlie 65, right there. And I can actually move this bubble around. So I can tap and hold on any of the bubbles in my flight plan drawer and rearrange them based on whatever order I want. And when I do that, my route below that is modified as well. So everything I do up top is shown below, and everything I do below is shown up top. They're linked. Also, if you do a quick tap on one of these bubbles, instead of pressing and holding and dragging, if you just do a quick little tap on one, you'll get some actions that you can perform. Show on map, the green action, that will center the map on that waypoint. Direct to will plot a direct course from your current GPS position to that waypoint. Delete will remove it from the route. I can insert waypoints before or after it. I can show a plate for it. I can show the airport diagram in one tap. The last option there, show full screen, that's just a shortcut. That will basically take this airport, Grand Rapids, and that will put it on the airports tab we were looking at earlier and automatically display that tab for me. So it's just a quick way to go back to the airports tab. Of course, after I've planned my route, I get some information about it. What the distance is, what my time en route is going to be, what my estimated time of arrival in the destination airport's local time is, how much fuel I'm going to burn, and what the average headwind or tailwind is going to be averaged across the entire route. But to get good numbers out of ForeFlight, we have to put good numbers into ForeFlight. So the app needs to know how your aircraft performs. It needs to know when you plan on departing, that sort of information. And to do that, we use these buttons over here on the left-hand side. The first button is the aircraft button. This allows us to tell ForeFlight a little bit about the plane or helicopter, gyrocopter, whatever we're going to be flying. I can tap on that button, and I get a list of all the aircraft that I've added, all of them that have been added to the system. If I haven't added an aircraft before, this menu will be blank, and I can add a new one. I can tap on the aircraft I want to fly with, and it will be checked, and that's the aircraft that ForeFlight will use to calculate the numbers. If I don't have any aircraft, or I want to add a new aircraft, I can tap the plus button in the top of this menu, and when I do that, I get this form here. And there's a lot of information in this form. The more information you can provide, the better your answers are going to be. But you'll see there's two fields that are highlighted in yellow: the tail number and the aircraft type code. These are the required fields at a minimum that you should fill out. If you enter your tail number and your type code, ForeFlight knows a little bit about your airplane. It has an aircraft database, and it can fill in other parts of the form for you to save you time. So always fill in those two fields first. Back on the flight plan drawer, there's another button just under that aircraft button we talked about just a minute ago. This is the performance button. This is how I tell ForeFlight how my aircraft is going to perform. Maybe in your POH you have different performance profiles, different power settings, that sort of thing. You can set these up in ForeFlight and choose the one that you plan on flying, and that will get your numbers even more accurate. I can tap on this button and I can see all of the available profiles that are available for this aircraft. In ForeFlight Mobile, there are 3 types of profiles. Every customer has access to the basic performance profile. The basic profile is very simple. It's just a couple numbers, and for a lot of customers, it's sufficient. It's as accurate as they need to be. There's another type that's available in the Performance Plus subscription, which is called the by altitude profile. This allows you to define your aircraft's performance at any altitude you want. So if your aircraft obviously is going to perform differently at 10,000 than it is at 3,000, you can enter those different performance numbers, and ForeFlight will use that. You can enter actually just a few altitudes, and ForeFlight will interpolate across those altitudes when it's calculating. There's also the last option here, the ForeFlight Performance Profile. Again, only available in the Performance Plus subscription. We've worked with aircraft manufacturers to actually get the real profiles right out of the POHs. And if as a Performance Plus subscriber, you have access to these. So you could enter, for example, a for example, SR22 turbo, like G5 or something like that. And based on that information, you're going to see all of the performance profiles in the application. There's nothing for you to enter. It's built in. Today, we're only going to talk about the basic kind. It's the simplest, and it's often very much sufficient for most customers. The basic profile allows you to define airspeed, fuel burn, and climb or descent rate for your climb phase, your cruise phase, and your descent phase of flight. And based on these numbers, ForeFlight's going to give you some answers. So to create a basic profile, we'll go back to that flight plan drawer. Remember, we tapped on we entered our aircraft here, and then we tapped on this performance button, right? Under the custom performance profiles section, that's where I can create basic profiles. I can create as many as I want. Maybe I have a long-range cruise profile. Maybe I have a get-there-quick profile, that sort of thing. I can type Add Basic Performance Profile, and when I do that, I'm presented this menu. So this is just ForeFlight saying, okay, how is your aircraft going to perform in climb, in cruise, and descent? So fill in those numbers right out of your POH, and select that profile in the future, and that's how you're going to get good answers. The last button I want to talk about in this menu is the last one here at the bottom on the left-hand side. This is how we choose our altitude that we're going to fly at. It's important to choose the altitude because that's how ForeFlight calculates the winds and what the winds effect are going to be on your flight. The view that comes up when you tap on this button is really useful. We call it the Altitude Advisor. Based on the current winds aloft forecast, ForeFlight's going to show you what the winds are, how your aircraft is going to perform based on those performance numbers, and how much fuel you're going to burn. So I can see, for example, at 9,000 feet, I have a 5-knot tailwind. That's going to take 2 hours, 35 minutes. I'm going to burn 35 gallons of fuel in this particular instance. I can filter these altitudes by VFR or IFR, westerly or easterly headings, or just view all altitudes. And I can tap on the altitude that I want to fly at, and that'll be entered into the box. So we've been planning a flight, we've been entering this information, and we've been doing it all on this Edit tab, right? So we tapped on the flight plan drawer at the top here, and we've been on this Edit tab here. But when you're flying, maybe you want a nav log. You want to see per leg information, how your flight is progressing, how much time it's taking, that sort of thing. You can go over to the nav log tab, and you'll see a nav log that has per leg information, and this will update in flight based on your GPS ground speed and your estimated time of arrival. So there's a whole lot more on this maps page that we're not going to get into today. You can come check out our booth in Hangar C. We're at booth 92, and we can give you a full demo of everything the maps view can do. Let's talk about plates. Plates is one tab to the right along the bottom. So we looked at airports, then we looked at maps, now we're on plates. And when I open up the plates view, it's going to look like this. The plates view is very simply just a way to organize any of the procedures or taxi diagrams or anything I want for a given flight. So I have them one tap away for quick access. You can create what are called binders. Binders are like folders, and you can create as many as you want, and then put whatever plates you want into each binder. Up at the top of the screen is a drop-down. This drop-down shows you what the current binder is called that you're looking at. And by default, there's just one. It's called My Plates. But I can create multiple binders. I can tap on this drop-down, and I get a menu that shows me all the binders in the system. I can tap the plus button, and then when I do that, ForeFlight will say, what do you want to call this new binder? So let's say I was flying to Sun and Fun, and I wanted to organize all the procedures I wanted for that trip. I would type Sun and Fun into the box, hit Save, and Sun and Fun is added to my list of binders. Now it's a new binder. I haven't added any plates to it yet, so my view is empty. It looks like this. So let's add a plate to our Sun and Fun binder. We can do that by tapping the Add Plate button, and I'll get a view that looks like this. Now we're trying to work on features that save you a little time when you're planning, and one of those features is on screen here right now. ForeFlight knows we were just looking at Oshkosh in the airport's view, so it's suggesting, do you want to get a plate from Oshkosh? Maybe that'll save you a little time. It also knows what our flight plan was, what we were planning on the map view, Schaumburg and Plymouth and Grand Rapids. So it's saying, maybe you want to get a procedure for one of these airports. So if that matches, if that's one of the airports you really did want a plate from, you can tap on that, you'll see all the plates. If you don't see the airport you want a plate from, just tap in the search box and enter the airport that you want. So in this case, I'll do KLAL for Lakeland, and when I hit enter on my keyboard, I see all of the procedures into Lakeland. And I can tap on the procedure that I want to add to my plate, and I can add as many as I want, and they stack like this. And I can drag them to reorder them and remove them and that sort of thing. Tap on a plate, it opens up in full screen. There's one thing on this procedure that I want to call your attention to, and that's at the top of the screen. You'll notice there's a button here. It says tap to view two NOTAMs. Obviously, it's super important to review all the NOTAMs that are applicable to your flight before you fly. To make it a little easier, though, and to call out any NOTAMs that are specific to what you're looking at, we've built this feature. We call it NOTAMs on plates. You can tap on that button, and you'll see only the NOTAMs that are relevant to the specific procedure that you're looking at, whether that's a taxi diagram or an ILS or a GPS approach, whatever. You can tap on the pencil at the top of the screen, and you can make notes on any document, procedures included. So I could circle things that are of interest to me, and those annotations are saved on the device. Also, there's this button in the top right-hand corner of the view. It looks like a little box with an arrow coming out of it. We call this the Send To button. You might see this button in other places in the application. Wherever you see it, this is ForeFlight telling you, whatever you're looking at here, whatever it may be, you can take this and you can put it somewhere else. You can visualize it somewhere else. So if I tap on that button when I'm on the plates view, I can take this procedure and I can put it in two places. I could print it out, send it to my printer if I have one connected, or I could send it to the map. And this is a really incredible feature. This is a feature that's available in the Pro subscription, and it allows you to visualize that procedure on top of the map view, whatever view you were looking at. So if I was flying into this airport, I would see my aircraft transition there, and I can adjust the opacity of that plate. I can change the plate, and it's a really, really great feature. I could turn on weather from here, like radar or turbulence, and I would see that overlaid on top as well. Next thing I want to talk about is the Documents tab. That's one to the right of plates along the bottom of the screen. This is what it looks like. Should look familiar, right? Looks just like the plates view. Again, we're trying to design features so that once you learn how to do it in one place, you can do it in another place. A document is really anything that isn't an aviation procedure, right? So a document might be the POH for your aircraft. Maybe it's some local noise abatements rules that you had, that sort of thing. So you can add a document to the system by tapping the Add Document button. It's worth noting there's also binders up at the top here, so you can organize documents into multiple binders just like you did with plates. So let's say I want to add a document. I'll tap on that Add Document button, and I get the document catalog. And the document catalog shows me all the places that I can pull a document from. So, for example, FAA, all the documents that the FAA publishes on their website, chart supplements, Class B enhancement graphics, that sort of stuff. Those are all available here in the application. You can download them directly into the app. The ForeFlight category is anything that ForeFlight has published. So that's things like our pilot's guide, this one right here. The pilot's guide is the manual to the application, and you can download it and have it with you in the app when you fly. There's one chapter for every feature. Whenever there is a large air show like Sun and Fun or Oshkosh, we'll take the NOTAM that's been published for that air show and we will put it in the ForeFlight section. So if you flew into Sun and Fun this year, you can get the Sun and Fun NOTAM. In this case, I had a screenshot from Oshkosh from last year. You could tap on that and it would download it and it would put it right in the documents view for you. You can tap on a document to open it. You can swipe left to right to move through the pages. Up at the top of the screen, lots of the same tools we had on the plates view. So I can make annotations on the document, like highlight things that are important to me using the pencil tool. I can also search through this document. I can tap on the search button, and I can search for a specific chapter or a sentence that I'm looking for, and ForeFlight will show me anything that matches. I can tap on the bookmarks button, and I can bookmark specific pages. So for example, I keep my POH here, and I've bookmarked specific pages that I reference frequently, and that's a quick way to access those. At the bottom of the screen is just an overview of all the pages in the document. So if you want to quickly jump to the middle, you could just tap on the page that's in the middle of the document that way. This is what my documents view looks like in my version of ForeFlight. These are documents that I've imported. So I have my POH here. I have some checklist information. I have a local procedure. I used to fly out of San Carlos in the Bay Area, and they had a noise abatement procedure, so I would keep that with me on my iPad. Some handbooks, that sort of thing. So it's a really, really great feature. For more information on how to import your documents and how to actually do that specifically, stop by our booth in Hangar C or check out our website. We'll be happy to walk you through it. Let's talk about weather imagery. Lots of weather imagery built into the app. That's under the Imagery tab here at the bottom. Everything you'd expect to find on aviationweather.gov, plus a whole lot more, is built into this view. So all the different categories of weather are here, and you can tap on the category you want and then tap on the specific imagery in that category, and it'll open it up in full screen. And you can use these little pager buttons at the bottom of the screen here, and you can move back and forth between different time periods for that imagery. Okay, let's talk about filing and briefing. You can file and get weather briefings for both VFR and IFR flight plans right through the app. It's really easy. You can do that on the Flights tab. That's this one right here. When you open up the Flights tab, you'll see a view that looks like this. All of the flights you've created in the past are listed here. If you haven't created a flight or you want to create a new flight, you can tap the plus button at the top of the screen, and ForeFlight will insert a brand new flight into the list. This is the flights form. It has a lot of the same information that we entered on the maps view. So it has that same readout of time and distance and fuel. It has fields for your departure, your destination, your estimated time of departure. It has an area to tell ForeFlight about the aircraft you're flying and the performance profile you're flying. It has a route section with a preview of the route and an area where you can type your route in. It has a few other things, though, that aren't available on the maps view. The nav log. This is a planning nav log, so it's not dynamic like the one we were looking at on the map that will change as you fly. It's more of a planning style nav log, but it has a lot more information that's included, and you can print it out, you can save it to your device, you can do lots of things with it, so it's really neat to have on the device. Also briefing. You can generate a weather briefing. There's a couple different types of briefings that are available in the product. This is what we call our graphical briefing. It's all the information that you'd expect to find on 1-800-weatherbrief.com when you get a briefing there, but we've redesigned it so that you can use it very easily on an iPad or on an iPhone. Lots and lots of different categories in here that you can step through. You can mark things as read, so I've read this section if you want. Really handy. We don't have time today to go through every section of our weather briefing, but if you stop by our booth in Hangar C or check out our website, we'd be happy to show you how it works. Okay, let's talk about the filing part. So we've planned the flight, right? Now we're ready to file it. So I'll tap that Proceed to File button at the bottom of the flight view that I just filled in, and I get an ICAO flight plan form. And ForeFlight fills in everything for me, fills in all of my special codes and information. Up at the top of the screen, there is the form type, ICAO. If yours does not say ICAO, it might say FAA Domestic, you should change it to ICAO. You should become familiar with how to file with ICAO. And the reason is the FAA is transitioning to the ICAO flight plan format in the near future, and the FAA domestic form is going to go away. So make sure you change that to ICAO. And if you have questions on what the differences are and that sort of thing, you can check out our filing guide. It's on our website. It's also in that document catalog I talked about where I downloaded the manual. You can look at the filing guide in that view as well. You can tap File to file the flight plan, and we send it off to air traffic control if it's IFR, or if it's VFR, we'll send it off to flight service. Lots of benefits to filing with ForeFlight. It's easy, it takes a few seconds, but also we'll do a few things for you when you file. The first time you add an aircraft, so when we were back on the aircraft view and I was tapping that plus button, I was entering my tail number and my type code. After you do that, 5 minutes later, you're going to get an email, and the email is going to say, we've set up your aircraft filing codes for you. So basically, based on the type certificate data for your aircraft that the FAA has, we're going to automatically set all of your ICAO fields for you to save you some time. Now, it's important to double check those codes and change them if necessary before you file, but that's meant to save you a little bit of time. We're also going to send you what's called adverse condition alerts. So an adverse condition alert is, let's say you file a flight plan and maybe a TFR pops up, or an AirMet or a SIGMET pops up. You wouldn't know about that unless you generated a new briefing right before you filed. We know about it. We're tracking the system, the weather system, the National Aerospace System. We know what your estimated time of departure is. So if anything pops up between the time you file and the time you're expected to depart, we're going to send you a push notification. And you can see what that thing is, if it's a TFR, where it is, that sort of stuff. If you're filing IFR, there's two great benefits. We can send you your expected route. So you file through ForeFlight. ForeFlight talks to the air traffic control system. There's a computer system. It's called ERAM. And ERAM, when it gets an IFR flight plan in, it says, that looks good. This pilot's going to be cleared as filed. Or, no, that doesn't look too good. We're going to have to amend this route. Well, because ForeFlight sent the flight plan for you, and we can listen in on that computer system, we know what ERAM is thinking. So if it's going to assign you a new route, we're going to push notify you that route. We're going to send it back to you so that with one tap, you can load it into Maps. So when you call up clearance delivery to get your clearance, you have your route already on your iPad or your iPhone. Also, we're going to send you the expected departure clearance time. So if you're flying out of an airport that has a ground delay program in effect or anything like that, we're going to notify you about that too if it affects your ETD. I wanted to mention, so we planned a flight on the Maps view, right, this view, and then we planned a flight on the Flights view so we could file it, right? Well, what if I planned a flight on the maps view and now I'm ready to file it? I don't want to have to go to the flights view, create a brand new flight, fill out all the information again. You don't have to do that. We can go back to that little icon we were talking about, the Send To button. Anywhere you see this, this means you can take this thing and you can put it somewhere else. So in this case, if I plan the flight here and I want to file it, I can send it to flights, like that. And when I tap on the button, it's going to copy all that information over to the flights view for me. It's going to create a new flight. It's going to pre-fill all the information just as I had it set up on the map view. And then with one tap, I can file. And I can do the reverse, too. If I planned something here and I filed it and now I'm ready to go fly, I can tap that Send To button in the top right and send it to Maps. So now it's on my map view, so I can go fly it. Another really great feature is Scratchpad. Scratchpad is a way to take notes on your iPad. Scratchpad is the second to last tab along the bottom of the screen here. You can tap on Scratchpads, and here's the view. Again, it should look familiar. It looks just like plates, just like documents. You can tap New Scratchpad, and that will give you an option, and it'll say, well, what, do you want to use a template? What kind of template do you want to use? A template is just a pre-formatted view, and we have a variety of different templates for you. The most basic type is Draw, so this lets you just take notes with your finger, or if you have an Apple Pencil or an iPad-compatible stylus, you can take them with that. One of my favorite templates, though, is the ATIS option. If I tap ATIS, you'll get a view that looks like this, so you can very quickly jot down an ATIS like that. I use that one all the time. OK, so I know that was a tremendous amount of content in 1 hour. I want to say this. If there's one thing you take away from this presentation today, it's downloads. Downloads is really important. In ForeFlight, it's important to download all the information you need before you go fly so that you have it when you need it. Because you might not have an internet connection. You probably won't, actually, when you're flying. And so it's important that we get all of our charts, the latest weather, the latest fuel prices and NOTAMs, all downloaded before we go. In ForeFlight, getting that information is actually pretty easy. We can do that by going to the More tab, the last tab along the bottom of the screen, and going to the Download section. And in the Download section, there are two areas. I can tap into the country that I want data for. So if I'm flying in the US, I would tap into United States. And then I get a view that looks like this. At the top of the screen is where I tell ForeFlight what types of charts I want for the United States. So if I'm a VFR pilot, maybe I'll turn on VFR sectionals and airport diagrams. If I'm an IFR pilot, I might turn on IFR charts and terminal procedures. So turn on the types of data you want. And then in the section beneath that, the areas you want it for. So in the US, it's divided by state. So you got to turn on the states you want. In Canada, it's divided by province. And then once you've selected the types you want and where you want it from, you go back, tap the back button, back to downloads at the top of the view, and you tap that big blue download button. And when you do that, ForeFlight will look at what you selected, where you wanted it from, and it'll download it all to the device. Now, let's say you're flying a long cross country. Maybe it's a really long route and it goes across multiple states. And you don't want to think, oh man, okay, what are all the states I'm crossing through? That's kind of a pain in the butt. I get that. We built a feature that automates this for you. And we call the feature Pack. So the idea is you can plan a route. So here's a basic route I've entered. And then I can tap this little suitcase button at the bottom of the screen right here. And I can tap that button and ForeFlight will show me all of the information that I need to fly that flight. So if there's any charts that I had selected in the downloads view, if there's any charts that I don't have on my device, it'll prompt me to download them here. In this case, it's saying, it looks like there's some taxi diagrams and some airport facility directory information that you don't have that's along this route. You might want to get that. NOTAMs, fuel prices, weather, that sort of thing. So I can tap that blue Pack button at the bottom of the menu, and it will download everything I need just for that flight. So that's a really quick way to do it. OK, so everything we've gone through today, that's probably about 10% of what ForeFlight can do. There's a tremendous amount of capability packed into the application. We've tried to design it in a way that's really approachable. Don't be afraid to tap around and try out features and experiment with it. Again, we're in Hangar C all week, too, if you want to get a live demo. I wanted to show you a few more things that we didn't have time to get to today, but that might be of interest to you. One of them is synthetic vision. This is a 3D view of what's outside the window. It's the worldwide Jeppesen obstacle and terrain database. It includes runways that are depicted. If you have an attitude heading and reference system, like from the Stratus or from the Sentry, that'll give you accurate pitch and bank as well. In the latest version of ForeFlight, you can even see traffic in 3D in this view. Weight and balance is built into the app. That's included in the Plus plan, so you can go into the weight and balance section, load up your aircraft. You can drag and drop people and cargo between stations and see your weight and balance move in real time. That profile view I talked about earlier, that's one of my favorite features. There's two modes to profile. I showed you the route mode at the beginning of the presentation. It also has an in-flight mode, so you can see what's ahead of your aircraft as you're flying. Logbook is built in, a really great logbook feature that will automatically log your flights for you. Makes sense, right? If you're flying with ForeFlight, ForeFlight knows where you are, where you're going, how many takeoffs and landings you did, and it can log all that for you to save you some time. Checklist is built in as well, so you can import your own checklists or start with one of the hundreds of different checklists we have for lots of different types of aircraft. And checklists are always one tap away under the More tab. Glide Advisor is one of my favorite features. This is a real-time available gliding distance. So if I had an engine failure right at this point, at my current GPS altitude, this is the available distance I have to glide to the ground. It takes into account the winds aloft forecast, and it takes into account the terrain and obstacles that are around you. It only requires two pieces of information for you to enter for it to work: your glide ratio and your best glide speed. That's it. Another good one is the Procedure Advisor. This is a way to visualize both IFR and VFR procedures. So you can graphically select a SID, a STAR, an instrument approach, or even a traffic pattern entry in just a few taps. ForeFlight also has a lot of alerting technology built in. So, for example, this is our hazard alert feature. So ForeFlight's always computing a 3D trajectory of my aircraft. And if I'm on a collision course with terrain or obstacles, I can automatically, from the alert, orient myself, track up, and see where the obstacles or terrain are. This is ForeFlight Web. A lot of the planning features we just talked about are available on ForeFlight.com. So I can log into ForeFlight.com. There's no additional software to install. It works on Mac and Windows, just in a regular web browser. And I can look at weather, file a flight plan, get a briefing. And the flight that I plan on ForeFlight Web syncs automatically to my iPad or my iPhone. So I can plan it here, pick up my iPad, go out to the airplane. And once I get out to the airplane, if I have a panel from one of our partners, Garmin, Avidyne, Dynon, Aspen, I can wirelessly transmit my flight plan to my panel. There's many different hardware variants that we support, and you can get a full list at ForeFlight.com. There's one on here I wanted to point out. That's the flight simulator. If you have Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-Plane or Lockheed Martin's Prepared simulator, you can actually hook up ForeFlight to the simulator and fly in the sim, and ForeFlight will think it's flying along with you. So it's a good way to practice. Lots of ways to learn more. Check out that pilot's guide. That's in the document catalog. ForeFlight.com/videos. This course will be recorded, will be at that website. Lots of little 5-minute videos you can search through about all the features. Check out our blog for the latest information. And remember that pilot support team. They're all pilots, they're all ForeFlight experts, they're available 24/7. Send them an email with any questions you have. And that concludes the fundamentals presentation. So thank you so much for coming. I hope it was useful. I hope you learned something. We have about 10 or 15 for questions if anyone has a question. Yes, sir.
I was trying to follow you on my iPhone, but the iPad picks up what you had, right? Because I couldn't get the same screen set.
Yeah, so the question is about the iPhone. The iPhone has some of the functionality that the iPad does, but it does not have all of the functionality. We're continuing to work on bringing additional functionality to the iPhone. Yes, sir.
Can you change the flight plan in the air if you don't have an internet connection or ATC routes?
So the question is, can I change my flight plan? And if I'm in the air, can I change my flight plan? ForeFlight does allow you to amend your flight plan. You can do it right from the filing view. It does require an internet connection, though. So you would need either a cellular signal or a Wi-Fi signal to do that. Yes?
Did you use the weather app or the?
It doesn't work over ADSB. Yeah, filing and amending is only internet. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We'll say again what georeferencing is.
Georeferencing. So I mentioned that term a couple times. Georeferencing is a feature that allows us to look at a procedure like an IFR plate and embed geographical information in it. So if a procedure is georeferenced, it means as long as you have a GPS signal, you'll see your GPS position on top of that procedure.
See the airplane.
Yes, sir. Yep.
When you do a briefing on the flight page, is that recorded somewhere to meet the FAA requirements for
Yeah,
briefing?
great question. So the question is, if I get a weather briefing through ForeFlight, is there a record that I received it? And the answer is yes. There's a record in 3 places. The first place is, of course, your iPad, because the briefing is on the iPad. The second place is on the ForeFlight servers. We have a record of the briefing that was generated. And the third place is with Lidos, who generates the information for the briefing, so they have a record. In fact, ForeFlight maintains a record of every single briefing that's ever been requested forever. So we get customers that send us, you know, hey, I had a briefing like 2 months ago, and I wanted to pull that for whatever reason. Can you do that for me? And yes, we can. We have a record.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there a way when you're looking at ADS-B traffic that you can mask traffic that's like 30,000 feet above you? Is it
Yeah.
selectable? How do you do that?
Yeah, so let's say that I'm looking at traffic on the map view, and I don't care about traffic that's far away or way above me. Can I hide that? Yes. There is a setting in the More tab under the Settings view. It's called Hide Distant Traffic. And that will get rid of anything that's not close to you.
You do it for altitudes?
It's not configurable right now, yeah. Other questions?
One question.
Yeah.
I was over there coming in yesterday. I tried to close the flight plan when I was taxiing in. I hit close, and for some reason it said it didn't work. And then when I stopped, I closed it, and it did work. Does that have anything to do with movement?
No, just
Oh, that was just the signal,
internet.
the cell signal.
Yeah.
Okay. That was
Hello.
just the cell data. Okay. All right.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the best way to populate your log book if you have a lot of entries that you want to go to before ForeFlight?
Yeah, so let's say you have a ton of logbook entries and you're interested in moving to the ForeFlight logbook. What's the best way to do that? There's two ways. The first way is you can import your logbook through our website. Do you have a paper logbook or a digital? Paper, okay. So if you go to foreflight.com, you can log in and you can download a spreadsheet template. CSV, exactly. And you can type in as much as you want. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to create what's called a catch-up entry. So this allows you to define basically your time in type or time IMC, whatever you want, and it'll just start from there. That's up to you. Yeah, yes, sir.
In any of the maps, when I highlight the winds aloft tab, I don't get all these bars. I have to hunt around the map to find one, and I don't even get the ribbon. So what I end up doing is I have to go look for a city ahead of me, and I pull up the info and then get the winds over that.
In flight?
In flight.
Over ADS-B.
Over ADS-B.
Yeah, so the graphical winds that we talked about on the map, that's not available over ADS-B.
So that's
It's internet only.
on internet only.
However, when you connect to ADS-B, you do get winds aloft information. So when you tap on the airport to look at winds aloft,
Right.
that is coming over ADS-B.
That does come
It's the
there.
graphical part on the map that's not provided over
So
ADS-B.
it's only internet.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.